my topic for today is health and wellness, old principle, new perspective. What I am going to share with you is actually not really new, but it is, in fact, it was so old, it was already forgotten. But as we apply it to how we live now, it appears as a new perspective for so many. And I myself became an advocate of this way of life, of this kind of approach to nutrition, because even as a doctor, it still surprised me to learn this one way back 3 years ago. And that is the reason why I am being loud and proactive when it comes to sharing this to as many people as possible. And it is such a pleasure to be able to share with information with you today. So my name is Josephine Grace Chua Rojo, and I am a physician, and also, as what you all know, I am a specialist in the diseases of ears, nose, throat, and head and neck surgery. But my advocacy on the side, I do root cause medicine, specifically the low carb and fasting nutrition. So I do not have anything to disclose financially. I wrote 3 books, so it is called a Perfect at Last book series, focusing on weight, health, and wellness. So to start, I would just like to share with you an excerpt in the book Genghis Khan before, and the emphasis on this excerpt is on the diet of the Mongols compared to the Chinese. How come Genghis Khan thrived and conquered them all? So it is in here. We can read all together. The Chinese noted with surprise and disgust the ability of the Mongol warriors to survive on little food and water for long periods. According to one, the entire army could camp without a single puff of smoke, since they needed no fires to cook. Compared to the Jurched soldiers, the Mongols were much healthier and stronger, and the Mongols consumed a steady diet of meat, milk, yogurt, and other dairy products, and they fought men who lived on gruel made from various grains. The grain diet of the peasant warriors stunted their bones, rotted their teeth, and left them weak and prone to disease. In contrast, the poorest Mongol soldier ate mostly protein, thereby giving him strong teeth and bones. Unlike the Jurched soldiers who were dependent on heavy carbohydrate diet, the Mongols could more easily go a day or two without food. So what can we learn from this excerpt? Even way back 800 years ago, they already know, they already saw, although the ones on the Jurched soldiers, they didn't know what was happening. They are eating more frequently as compared to their Mongol soldier counterparts, and yet they are being defeated, they are being conquered easily, even if the Mongol warriors were actually eating less when it comes to amount, less when it comes to frequency. However, now our knowledge when it comes to this kind of nutrition is making sense, wherein we now understand that that more than the amount when it comes to bulk or quantity, and more than just the amount when it comes to frequency, the more important part, if we want to really thrive like the conquerors, like the Mongol soldiers, and not just be the defeated ones like that of the peasants, we should be looking at the quality of our food rather than just the mere quantity. This is also the reason why people actually cannot imagine eating without rice, without bread in a day. This is because as long as you keep on feeding or fueling from carbohydrates, from glucose, you will be in a perpetual state of just looking for glucose, fueling on glucose, but you are not actually gonna do good to your body when it comes to sustainability. And we will talk a little more about that. So the basis of our knowledge when it comes to nutrition is actually by evolution. It's not about the dietary guidelines. It's not about the food pyramid. It's not about the Pinggang Pinoy of DOH, because those things are just modern day outcome of certain research that were actually done not the best way, not the highest quality when it comes to scientific basis, And so what we are looking into now is the nutrition by evolution and how we evolved as humans for the last 2 million years. So from by evolution, we started as forest apes, wherein we were eating fruits mostly and fruits until we became Homo sapiens. But as we became Homo sapiens, we actually didn't eat just fruits. It's actually the discovery of fire. Upon the discovery of fire, we were able to extract more nutrients, more quality when it comes to not just the calories, but also the presence of proteins and fats that enabled us to thrive, even if there are times of fasting, even if there are times of absence of food, because of the storage form in our body that we were able to create. And that is because of the presence of fire, which led to hunting and gathering time. As hunter and gatherers, we thrive, and that is how we evolved as the modern day humans that we are now. So from the simple brain that we've had, what separated us from the rest of the animal kingdom is actually our larger brain, not in bulk or not by weight, but when it comes to number of neurons and the number of neural connections. So those numbers, that complexity actually enabled us to thrive. And we thrive only during the last 200 years of us evolving as humans, as thriving hunter and gatherers. A little overview. Our diet and brain size, there is already an overwhelming evidence of that. And that is also the basis why we do not actually believe that going vegan, going vegetarian is the best approach. Maybe for certain conditions, maybe for certain specific scenarios, these can be a good point to pursue only on a certain period of time, but sustainably wise, like long term, for something that we can do and live on a day-to-day basis, we do not believe that going vegan, vegetarian, or pure fruitarian is actually of the benefit when it comes to thriving mindset. But of course, if you just want to live simply, not much thrive when it comes to your mental capacity, and just live without, maybe you go on calorie deficit and then not really physically active, or you're not looking into like increasing your energy and doing more things all at once, then maybe you can accomplish that. But when it comes to diet and brain size, by evolution, the transition of the previous forest apes until transition to become Homo sapiens, that enabled modern day humans that we are now, being at the top of the food chain. And that is because our ability to extract more nutrients, to extract more quality kind of food from cooking and mostly feeding on animal based food. So approach is exclusive of the idea when it comes to all rights. And we believe that all here for a purpose. And as long as we do it the humane way, we are not being sadistic, we are not being brutal. When we do it the right way, it is just part of nature. And so the problem lies then, as why is it that when we thrived as humans, when we became already at the top of our health, how come we are now looking at devolution? From evolution, we now seem to devolve. And actually, even if we are seemingly living longer lifespan as compared to our hunter-gatherer counterparts, this is also something that we have to see. The reason why they live shorter lives before, and how we live our lives right now, that even if it's longer, but you can also question the quality of life that we are living. If you look into the past, people die because of childbirth, because of infection, because of trauma, not die because of metabolic illness. There's no sign of diabetes, cancers, obesity, or any heart disease. The reason that they die because of the absence of antibiotics, the absence of hygiene, proper wound care, and all those. And now believe that since we already have those antibiotics, those vaccines, those hospitalizations, we even have insurance to cover for accident, we can actually maximize the health of our ancestors. It's just that we are now dying, we are now living our lives only succumbing to diseases that are supposedly not found in the past. And this is because of the way we eat. And so this is just a short overview again of how much we know now. This is the food pyramid, and I think as educators we are very well aware of this. So it seems wholesome, right? There's not much biscuits, chocolates, candies, ice cream, desserts here. They're only at the top, at the tip, meaning they should be avoided. But why is this food pyramid is so wrong? Okay, because this food pyramid is just looking into the calories, the calorie effects of the food. And also, so that is why the bulk on at the bottom is carbohydrates, because it is under the assumption that we cannot live without glucose, we cannot live without sugar. So that's why we are bombarded with sugar through these carbohydrates. And of course, it is not labeled as sugar, it is considered as starch. But what was emphasized is starch. The moment it touches your saliva, the moment you chew it, the moment it's already broken down in your stomach, it easily becomes glucose. And glucose is 50% sugar, because table sugar is 50% glucose, 50% fructose. And those are the ones that spikes our blood sugar and eventually spikes our insulin. The next one, we have vegetables and fruits. Yes, they are rich in vitamins and minerals, but between the two, fruits comes with a high amount of fructose and glucose still. So that's why in low carb nutrition, especially for those people who still wants to heal or needed to heal, we try to avoid them altogether, especially the fruits that are sweet. And if you wish to extract like the vitamins and minerals, you can just extract it from vegetables, especially the vegetables that are considered as low in carbohydrate content. And this is where the sad part is. As we now know that we thrive by eating animal-based products, meat, fish, chicken, eggs, pork, all of that, now we are limiting our intake of those. Why? Because there are certain research showing that eating red meat will lead to cancer, eating fatty meat like steak and pork can lead to heart disease, but they are barking at the wrong tree. They didn't consider that of all those population that they were studying, it was under the assumption, it was under the standard diet, which is this, mainly composed of large bulk of grains and starches. It's just that because they didn't taste that pleasurable as compared, for example, for the meat, and they taste so bland, and they were labeled for the longest time as the healthy food, we never suspected them. But now we can see that these food groups are actually one of the most important things that we should consider, especially for those who are already trying to improve their food intake. They're already avoiding the desserts, they're already avoiding all the sodas, they already don't drink fruit juices, no more biscuits, no more candy, no more desserts, no more sweeteners, and yet they cannot seem to get out of their maintenance medications. Their blood sugar is still high, their blood pressure is still high, uric acid is still high, even if they're no longer eating proteins, they're just eating fruits, still the same fatty liver, even if they're not drinking any alcoholic drinks. And that is where the question lies. Why? Why do you still have those, even if you're already following all the general knowledge, general advice on avoiding red meat, avoiding fats, avoiding oil? And it is because when you avoid all of those, you are silently increasing your intake of the real culprit that was just hiding under the image of something that is bland, full of fiber, not high in fats, low calorie, but generally they are all insulin spiking. I will discuss with you in a short while what is insulin and what it does in our body, and also milk, dairy products. And if you can remember what the Mongol soldiers had before, even the peasant Mongol soldiers, they still eat meat and milk. And that helped them thrive and become successful in their own battles. And for the top here, this is quite confusing because they actually lump fats and oils and sweets, but it's not as simple as that. Not all oils or fats are created equal. In fact, if you can divide it into two, the fats that are in the cookies, the fats that are these frostings, the ones that use in most donuts, these are actually vegetable fats, factory-made fats, shortening, margarine, and yes, they are the ones that are now known to cause inflammation in the body that led to heart disease. But you cannot find a single study solely pinpointing natural fats as a bad or a culprit when it comes to these cardiovascular events. Saturated fats, just because it hardens in a cold temperature, it will already harden your arteries. Of course not. Your body keeps a normal blood temperature, wherein these saturated fats will always be in liquid form, and these saturated fats are actually essential in making many of the important parts of our immunity, that strengthens our immune system, that repairs internal damage in the body, that makes us heal faster, that makes us sleep better, that normalizes our hormones. Many of our hormones are actually fat soluble, and vitamins A, D, E, and K are all fat soluble. So you can have saturated fats as long as it is coming from natural sources like butter, ghee, even coconut oil, and also olive oil. So not all fats are created equal. So this is really very, very troubling, because even if we follow this is the main reason why we are still seeing a lot of people who have been following this, but are still seeing their health deteriorate over time. So if this is the food pyramid, actually, this is actually the diabetes diet pyramid. We thought that these diabetes food pyramid will be the one to heal a diabetic, when in fact, it is actually the same food pyramid that made many people diabetics. If you don't believe me, you can honestly ask yourself. I know you know at least one person who is diabetic, and maybe during the first few years, they may not be following this. They may be still eating sweets and all that. But it's in a matter of years, people with diabetes becomes fearful. They become afraid. They become scared. And they actually followed the whole food, whole grain, high fiber diet. And yet, what happened? They still increase their dose. They still have that need to increase their medications over time. And from diabetes, it's no surprise that sooner or later they'll be having hypertension, they'll be having fatty liver, they'll be having cardiac problems, having atherosclerosis, and worse, there are even some who are succumbing to cancer, tumor formation. And that is because for every rise in glucose, there is also a rise in insulin. So you can see here the black line will be your glucose. So whenever your body experiences a sugar spike coming from mostly carbohydrates, the ones, of course, from sweet foods, and even if from those starches, okay, your insulin will also follow to increase. And when it is increased, okay, it will be on a fat storing mode and anabolic mode. So anabolism, or building up, because insulin supposedly signals a harvest season before, okay? Before, in the past, during evolution, seldom do we get insulin spike. We only get insulin spike at least one to two seasons a year. And for these insulin spike, it's just correlates to harvest season. So harvest season from fruits, not from grains, okay? Because agricultural revolution actually just occurred the last 10,000 years ago. And they say that if we lump up our experience as modern day humans, as Homo sapiens, that last 2 million years, if we lumped it up into a year time, we only started eating rice yesterday as compared to a year of not eating rice. And we only started eating sugar and sweets an hour ago, only 1 hour ago. So no wonder why our body cannot actually tolerate too much of these sugar and yes, too much of these rice. Because for us Filipinos, we've been taught that our ancestors have been eating rice for the longest time, and maybe that's also the reason why Filipinos by genetics is actually not very tall, and when it comes to capacity we are not very superior when it comes to physique. And it's because our ancestors way back when we started doing all of these agriculture, doing eating rice, have been fueling mostly on carbohydrates. And with children, the building blocks of growth is actually not carbohydrates, not sugar, but it is the proteins. So insulin is okay as long as it's not spiking and as long as it's done only at the right time. When you eat proteins, your insulin can still be increased, but only on moderate, just maintenance phase. But when you are eating carbohydrates, you are spiking your insulin, and with constant spike of insulin, since it is a building up hormone, it is a hormone of metabolism, you are also expected to eventually go into an inflammatory state. Your body will start having water retention and then salt retention, and that leads to blood sugar increase and hypertension, and then that hypertension can damage your microvascular system, the minute parts of our blood vessels, and that also correlates with increase in your blood sugar and is also damaging the most vulnerable parts of our body, which would include your eyes, that leads to blindness, your kidneys, that eventually leads to kidney failure and dialysis, and of course many things that are sometimes not that obvious, like it can present as just aches and pains, and it can be as minor as just like a dizziness, or like a difficulty to feel your hands and feet. So those altered sensations, those are already signs of minute inflammation in the body. So that is the reason why we don't agree with Pinggang Pinoy, because Pinggang Pinoy, if you look at it, it is 67% made up of carbohydrates in the form of, yes, vegetables may be okay, but your rice is just full starch, and then you add fruits to it. So it's all 67% of carbohydrates. And for the grow part, the protein is very, very small. We have been on chronic low protein intake. That's why children don't really grow. They don't really grow. And we wrongly labeled rice as go, although yes, we can fuel from glucose coming from rice. But what we miss is that our body actually can fuel or can function more efficiently if it's using a better kind of fuel. And that better kind of fuel is actually the ketones, that is having less oxidative stress, that is having less like garbage when it comes to after it is being metabolized. When you fuel on glucose only, you have this ROS, reactive oxygen species, and these ROS are the culprit of inflammation that starts the vicious cycle of just damaging our body. So our thinking before is that if there's no rice, there's no sugar, there's no energy. But actually, that's not true, because our body can fuel well coming from proteins and fats. And also, even if our body is not 100% built to fuel on ketones and fatty acids alone, but it can fuel using that up to 60 to 90% of the time, or on average about 80% of the time, because there's only very few cells in our body that are real glucose obligate eater. Okay, initially our brain is built to use glucose because we've been so used to using glucose as energy. But if you become fat adapted, once you already started fueling on fats as energy, your brain will function real well when it comes to optimal health, when it comes to clarity, when it comes to focus, because ketones and fatty acids will have less ROS production, the very least, if any, and it is going to function more efficiently. And when you do that, you're also reusing or recycling the ones blocking your brain, the ones blocking the connections, when it activates a certain concept called autophagy. So autophagy is a Nobel Prize award concept where it was discovered by a Japanese scientist, wherein in times of starvation or low food intake, our body actually, okay, our body actually recycles old defective parts and makes its own glucose through the process of gluconeogenesis. So gluconeogenesis is the mechanism in our body, in our liver, in our kidneys, to create glucose coming from non-carbohydrate sources, coming from the glycerol chain of triglycerides and coming from amino acids from proteins, because a lot of proteins are actually glucogenic. So you can convert them easily when your body knows that you need it and you need to create it, and it can just do that. So that is why we do not believe in Pinggang Pinoy. And also, since we do not believe in it, it's not also okay to just leave you with not knowing what to eat. Of course, we can still eat a lot of food. And this is the general food pyramid that we promote. So in here at the bottom would be fats, okay? But don't be confused. Don't ever think that you will like sip soups of oil and fats. Of course not, because fats are very nutrient dense. Like for example, just a tablespoon of butter is already equivalent to the energy of your half cup of rice, okay? So that is very nutrient dense, okay? So you don't need to like think that it will be overflowing. You can focus more on bulking up with proteins. And again, red meat will not make your kidney go on having a lot of creatinine in your system retained, or having your elevated uric acid. It's only when you pair them with carbohydrates that will make them bad. But when you eat them alone, your body can process them efficiently, and your body can function well. And in here, after that, you can still enjoy all the vegetables that you like, the colorful ones, the nuts, seeds, and dairies. And the fruits are already in our somewhat on our caution list, in a way that you should be limiting their intake, because by nature it's also not it's not available all year round and in large quantities. And of course, should you eat fruits, it should only be the ones in season. Okay, so in season before, if you can imagine a day in our hunter-gatherer ancestors, there's no banana plantation, there's no mango plantation. If they see a fruit-bearing tree, maybe they see it once in a blue moon, and or once in a while they're traveling, and during that time even it's even a question if it's really season of fruit, of that fruit, or not. So in general, the habit of eating fruits on a day-to-day basis is just very far out from what our body is used to. And did you know that fruits, what sweetens it is the presence of glucose and fructose. Glucose, when taken in excess, can be converted into fructose. And fructose, once it is not used all the time, it is easily converted into triglycerides. So for those of you who are wondering why your triglycerides are elevated, even if you are trying to avoid all the fats that usual doctors are advising you to avoid, and still your cholesterol is still high and your triglycerides is still high, this is because fruits, fructose, and glucose, when in excess, has a pathway to be converted into triglycerides and cholesterol. And the ones that will dictate that pathway is the presence of insulin. Insulin will be like a director that will tell your body to create more fats coming from non-fat sources. And also the same way, if you only do low carb and maybe do throw in some intermittent fasting, you can see that your body will now become more intelligent to produce the minimal amount of glucose that it needs coming from non-glucose sources or non-carbohydrate sources. So that is how intelligent our body is, but we thought we are more intelligent and we've override this natural system, and look where it led us now. So in here, avoid beverages with alcohol, because even as much as you enjoy them, you can still take them, but just know that it does not have any nutritional value. Okay, the saying that wine has antioxidants and all that, you can get antioxidant elsewhere without alcohol. And of course, the processed foods and candies and all that. So we already know, every doctor, everyone agrees that the processed foods should be avoided, but it's not enough to avoid just that, especially if you see that you are not reaching your peak health. And this is our food list. I think Sir mentioned a while ago our general knowledge when it comes to low carb nutrition. And this is the list that we have. It's available in our Facebook page, and you can download this, and you can also have that as printout. You are free to print that out. So we made sure that the safe list will cover a large bulk, so that you will see that you are not being restricted. You have a lot of options. It's just that we were taught differently. So danger list, all the processed foods already. For the caution list, we divided it into with insulin effect, and the other not with insulin effect, but also with inflammatory effect. So for the ones with insulin effect, I would just like to emphasize the presence of the eating of fruits, root crops, potato, sweet potato, carrots, and grains. These three, because these three food groups are considered to be the healthiest food, but they don't know, or what we don't know before is their insulin impact in the body. So if you feel like you need to lower down your inflammation in the body, your insulin level in the body manifested by presence of chronic pain, chronic fatigue, inability to focus, inability to function well, you're always tired, always craving for sweets, always craving for carbohydrates, then maybe you are already sugar dependent. And that is a fine line between sugar dependence and sugar addiction, because the moment you say that you cannot live without this, whatever that is already a proponent for addiction. And I hope you as educators will also use your students and your pupils as inspiration to do better. And of course, you are doing a very noble job, and it's such a shame for you not to take care of yourself, because you are the ones who are going to really make this world a better place. And so, to make it simple, you can just focus on foods that are either vegetables or meat. If you don't eat vegetables, then go for meat. If you are a vegan or vegetarian, then you can eat vegetables only, but make sure that it's low carb vegetables, and know that you might have a hard time reaching your protein and fat intake necessary for you to function optimally. But of course, we are pro-choice. That's why we are doing this, for you to be able to do that, to make that decision, an informed decision. Because what I don't want is for the patient to come to me and say that, Doc, I already did everything. I didn't eat all this and all that, but why is it that I am still sick? Why is it that even if I'm no longer eating soft drinks and desserts, why is it that my sugar is still high? Even if I'm no longer eating pork, and it's been 10 years since I last ate lechon, and I'm only eating like grilled fish or tinola, but still my cholesterol is so high, because you are looking at the wrong things. You are eliminating the wrong things, and you are overeating. You are eliminating the right food, and you are over consuming the wrong ones. So I hope this opens up your mind. Even if you do not believe this 100%, it's okay, but maybe just at the right time for you to question it, and you are free You are free to make your own research. Just know that generally what you can find in the internet is 98% based on the food pyramid on the American Dietary Guidelines, which was published in 1977 from from a very biased research funded by the Sugar Association. So I wish you well, and I wish you better health. And of course, the right thing is having the right mindset. If you can say that you are already 100% at the top of your health, then maybe you are doing it right. But if you cannot say that you are at the peak health, okay, then maybe it's the right time to start questioning things and try to look if you can improve it. So thank you very much. And I invite everyone, should you be interested to know more, we have an ongoing online classes. It's just a 20-minute per day for 21 days per disease. Okay. And also these ones. So our admin can coordinate with you. So in here, we teach people how to own their health, to understand their health, and to probably even improve and reverse their conditions using not against the standard medicine, but in adjunct. We can still use our medicine, but we don't need to use all of them, especially the moment you improve your food intake. So that's all for my talk for today. Thank you very much. Maybe I can entertain a few questions if you have. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Grace. Is it okay if we call you in your second name, Doc?
Yes,
Doc
yes,
Grace.
sir. Yes, sir.
Chowaro. Indeed, it is a very informative discussion and also topic that you had shared with us this morning. Deped Bacolod City, on behalf of Deped Bacolod City, SD Bacolod City, we are so grateful and happy to hear those inputs and as well as reminders that we need to adhere during this time of pandemic, especially when it comes to our health. Doc Rojo, do you have any suggestive diet daw for teachers in this pandemic?
So nothing specific, because by evolution, we have the same biology. So as a start, I invite you to join our Facebook group, Life Without Rice. So it sounds impossible for many, but it's already more than 300,000 members. So every day you'll be inspired on what to eat. Okay. So I don't do meal plans because that is just giving a fish. I am into teaching people how to fish. So it is for sustainability, and you understanding the science behind it is your best chance of making it sustainable, knowing that what you are doing, what you are eating is the one that is really good for you.
All right, they're very precise answer, coming from the expert itself. By the way, Doc, no rice diet, is that correct? The group
Yes.
page?
So life without rice.
Oh,
Okay.
life without rice. That's
Yes,
myself
because
corrected.
rice is just a representative. So others thought life without rice, but with desserts, with bread, with all that. No, it's life without rice, and rice is being the representative for all the high carbohydrate, insulin spiking, blood sugar spiking kind of food that we tend to overeat in a day.
All right, there you go. So no more in between meals, people. Life without rice. There you go. Actually, we need to have that kind of diet right now because what in this pandemic, Doc Pro, most of our teachers are actually sitting in their corners, printing the modules, checking the papers of our learners, as well as attending meetings, seminars, and webinars like this. So it's a very timely topic. So there you go. Are there any more questions, live viewers, on our official Facebook account, Depeta Bacolod City? I'd just like to say thank you, Doc Rojo, for very informative discussion that we have this morning from Zoe Leslie, Vanessa. Thank you, Doc Rojo, as well. So we have so many greetings right here. Thanking you, Dr. Rojo, for this very timely topic. Indeed, we need this kind of topic right now. So it's not only our pocket that we need to take care of, but also our health,
Yes.
which is also our health, our wealth. Now, one question right here, Doc. As a diabetic patient, what is the best way to maintain the ideal weight so that so as not to look emaciated? I'm sorry if I say it right. So, what is the best way or best weight now? Ideal weight?
Okay. So I think this diabetic person is already losing weight. Those are the common ones that are doing low carb, trying to eliminate other things, but not the right way. Okay. When they do it, they are actually losing muscles. And when they lose muscles, they are losing their lean body mass. And that is when they look old. Their
Oh.
skin looks saggy, and people tell them that you look horrible and all that. And it's because they've been afraid. They know already that sugar and carbohydrates are bad, but they still cannot move past the idea that proteins and fats are actually not bad. So what they actually tend to do is they limit their carbohydrates, they also limit their fats, they also limit their proteins. So what they are eating? Nothing. They're already
Nothing.
having a starvation or malnutrition diet, and that is what we not that is what we do not promote. So diabetes is a very complex and large and wide topic. That's actually the first part of our masterclass, wherein we teach people how to monitor their own blood glucose, how to adjust their food intake until they reach their blood glucose with or without medication. And then later on, we have a computation or food protocols for diabetics who need to lose weight, for diabetics who need to maintain weight, and for diabetics who need to gain weight, but emphasis on not just any kind of weight like fat weight, but muscle weight, increasing the lean body mass, because it's useless for you to increase your weight even if you look like good, but it's just made of fats. If you want to increase your weight, focus on increasing your muscle bulk, your lean body mass, and not just fats.
All right. So that also tells us, Doc, that aside from the diet, that we should be considering about this kind of body weight or body structure. We need also to do some exercise. So, any suggestion about the exercise, Doc, if you don't mind?
For those who still need to lose weight, so you do not need to exercise, okay? Our built-in, like, increased in body weight is 80 to 90% just coming from food intake. And it's not advisable for you, while you are still adjusting with your food intake, you are still transitioning from a high carb diet to low carb diet, to throw in exercise, because your muscles are still not used to fueling from ketones and fatty acids. So a person cannot overcome the cravings, the hunger. It will make the person go crazy. So, and even if they have like a very, very strong will or the discipline, but it's not sustainable. Willpower will become exhausted. And when that times, there's going to be a rebound. That's the reason why Biggest Loser show don't ever have a reunion episode, because they all regain their weight, the weight that they lost, and sometimes it's even more, and most often it's even more. So exercise, try to incorporate it once you've reached your goal weight already, once you're already no longer overweight. And then you can start with just 30 minutes a day, 5 times a week. And for those who want to gain weight, then you don't need to do really cardio. You just need to do resistance training, weightlifting, and build your muscle and muscle mass. But for those who are just already just want to shed off the extra weight, try to do it after you've already adapted to your new way of eating, but not while you're still transitioning.
Okay, there you go. So that answers the questions of most of our listeners or live viewers, because I'm pretty sure that most of them right now are doing their cardio and other exercises that they're doing it on their own, basically without any proper assistance or guidance. They only do it by simply watching YouTube and other social media platforms, just to get some idea on what to do it or how to do it. But thank you so much for that very timely input. Now, we'll entertain two more questions. Dr. Ho, would that be okay?
Yeah, maybe one
Okay.
or two more. Sige.
Okay, one will do. All right. So one more question from our live viewers right here from Sarah Mil Abiliar. Doc, good morning. Insulin plant is good for diabetic.
Okay.
There.
So insulin plant, if it functions the way it is named, like to lower blood sugar, yes, that could be okay in lowering blood sugar, but that is not addressing the root cause. Okay, because your problem is not just blood sugar. It's not just about the presence of sugar in your blood. When you increase your insulin, what insulin will do is make those sugar go inside the cells to lower your blood sugar. And what will your cells do to that sugar that is now inside your cells, especially if you're not using it? So it will actually be made into something else, either into fats or proteins that are no longer necessary. That's how our cell works. And what will happen to those? It will clog up your system. And eventually that can lead to still a kind of problem that people experiences after being diabetic for so long, but controlled diabetes, meaning their blood sugar is always normal, but it's because of forcing the sugar to go inside the cells, and it's not sustainable. You can imagine that if our body, the blood vessels are like the roads and the glucose are the cars. Okay, so the insulin is just a gateway is just the key so that the car can go inside the parking lot. But remember that your parking lot is not infinite. Okay, you do not have enough capacity to park everything. So what the root cause is, just lower your need for insulin in the first place. The best way to approach a diabetic is to give your pancreas a rest, meaning you don't need more insulin in your body, but what you need to do is to lower your body's demand for insulin. And how to do that? Just lower your intake of sugar.
There you go. Thank you so much, Dr. Ho. Indeed, you're enjoying this great venue that we have here in this platform. So there you go. You know what, Dr. Ho, why so many people are actually teachers, I would say, in that sense, asking about this because of, most of them are diabetic. Not to drop names, but yes, a lot of us actually experiencing that kind of, disease right now, I would say. Now, anyway, Doc Rojo, please do allow me to present this certificate of recognition. Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of SDO Bacolod City, please allow me to read the certificate of recognition. The certificate reads, Department of Education, Western Visayas Schools Division of Bacolod City awards the certificate of recognition to Dr. Josephine Grace C. Rojo in grateful appreciation and profound recognition of her invaluable service rendered as resource speaker for the Division